More Perfect Union crafted a video talking about how detrimental Disney has been to their employees and the Florida lawmakers aiding them in that process. The video is about 4 minutes long, but it's really good, and I implore you to watch the whole thing.
In Disney movies, the working class heroine works hard, dreams big, and goes from rags to riches. But in Orlando, thanks in part to Disney's power and corruption, it's the opposite of a Cinderella story.
How shall you deal with me, O prince, and all the powers of hell?
While working people struggle, Florida lawmakers just gave Disney a $570 million tax break. That brought the total amount of corporate subsidies Disney has received to at least $2 billion. The tax break is supposed to help create 2,000 new jobs in Florida. That's 275,000 per job. But those aren't good, high-paying jobs for local Floridians. Instead, Disney is just transferring people who work in California to an office in Orlando. That's $570 million and no real new jobs for folks that live here in Florida. And that means Disney is a net negative when it comes to job creation here over the last few years. In September, Disney laid off 28,000 workers, mostly from its theme park division. It was understandable to cut costs during the pandemic, but the next month, the company announced another 32,000 workers who would be laid off by March of this year, right when vaccinations were ramping up too. Worse, Florida taxpayers had to pay for it. So how does a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Disney pull this off? How do they get away with so much taxpayer cash? It's not magic, it's money. Scrooge McDuck levels of money, at least for state legislators. Last year alone, Disney donated over $5 million to state lawmakers and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, making them one of the biggest political donors in the state. Disney also shows a grand time to lawmakers by hosting their families with access to theme parks. Highly paid lobbyists fulfill wishes like the genie in Aladdin. But what are all these corporate handouts costing regular working people in Florida? Well, every time we give money away to a corporation, we're taking money away from everyday people. Corporations like Disney get what they want. In the Orlando area, we have children that are picked up for school at hotels and motels because they are homeless or precariously housed. So even our kids are experiencing the consequences of a fragile economy that's purely based on not just tourism, but exploitation of workers. There are so many Floridians, like my own family, who live near the most magical place on earth, and yet they don't even get to experience any of that magic. We could use over $500 million to completely eliminate the APD waitlist. The Agency for Persons with Disabilities has a waitlist of over 20,000 people who sometimes die on the waitlist because they never are able to access services. Yearly, the $30 million that Disney would be getting could be spent to hire 400 teachers every year. One reason why we have an affordable housing crisis is because the state of Florida has raided the Affordable Housing Trust Funds for years. And in Central Florida, where families are already living paycheck to paycheck, and now are facing eviction and are facing a lack of supply when it comes to affordable housing. Governor Ron DeSantis acts like he's a fiscal conservative, and yet he has been one of the biggest politicians to continue to consent to corporate tax breaks, including for companies like Disney. In fact, during the pandemic, Governor Ron DeSantis approved a $500 million refund that went to the state's largest corporations, including Walt Disney World. He's picking winners and losers, and he is robbing the people of Florida by giving corporate tax breaks out and robbing everyday people of the same types of benefits.
Okay, so More Perfect Union is, words can't describe how useful they are and how good they are when it comes to, talking about these labor movements and labor situations, and what's going on with workers everywhere across this country. So we have the Frito-Lay workers who have been treated horribly by Frito-Lay. We have their situation. You have the coal miners from Tuscaloosa, Alabama that went to New York to protest and strike. You have the Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama that tried to stage a union. There was recently a rule that Amazon broke the law with their union busting tactics, and now they're talking about a rerun on the election. I mean, so many instances of workers across this country struggling, banding together, and trying to create a better workplace, more democratic workplace, and an overall improved situation for themselves. But this video right here was absolutely amazing. They just went into great detail about Disney and their practices and what these bailouts really do, which is just provide more money to these corporations. Disney gave $5 million to Florida lawmakers last year. The lawmakers then turned around and provided Disney with a $570 million tax break. As you watched in the video, this was supposed to create jobs. It was supposed to provide subsistence to the Floridian population. Didn't do that. In fact, it did the opposite. Every time they get these sort of tax breaks, you lose out. You lose. You lose money. And what's amazing about this is what they say will happen never happens. This is what they refer to as trickle-up economics. Or, I'm sorry, not trickle-up. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip. This is what they refer to as trickle-down economics. So they give the money to the big corporations and CEOs because they're going to distribute it to everybody else. They're going to provide you with jobs and stuff. Yeah, that never happens. And it didn't happen here. In fact, Disney got that turned around and fired tens of thousands of workers. Before they got the money, they fired thousands of workers. Then after they got the money, they fired even more workers. So this doesn't work. Obviously, it doesn't work, but we continue to do it. And what's so amazing is that they'll do things like this, and they'll tell you that we can't afford universal health care. Even when the University of Massachusetts Amherst came out and said that that would save us, $5.1 trillion over the course of a decade? Free college is $60 billion over the course of 10 years. I mean, I don't understand. So what, we can't afford UBI? You know, they can do stuff like this at the drop of a pen, at the snap of a finger. But when it comes to cutting you a stimulus check, and all of a sudden it's, oh, how much is it going to be? We need the means tested. Who's going to be able to receive it? I mean, the way they go about governing, it's incredibly corrupt. It's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And this can't happen if we want a system that caters to everyone. Because the current system that we have does not do that at all. But this video from More Perfect Union was absolutely amazing. Did a phenomenal job of breaking down this situation with Disney. And this doesn't stop with Disney. This is pretty much every other large corporation in this country that does these things. And our politicians, they cater to them the same way they cater to the health insurance companies, the same way they cater to the military industrial complex. And it's just a problem that needs to be solved, that will only be solved with action from the people. Mass movements, civil disobedience, peaceful protests, etc. Shout out to More Perfect Union for this. This was amazing. And it really shed some well-needed light on what's really going on in this country.